on prison overcrowding and potential solutions. Just to recap a little, last week I talked about the fact that our cities are growing steadily more dangerous while we have more people in prison than ever before. Clearly, these reckless incarceration rates are not working. They seem to be making our societal issues worse. So if our elected officials could truly realize that mass incarcerating and overpopulation within prisons is not the answer, then hopefully they will take steps to implement meaningful and more humane legislation to reflect the change that we so badly need in our nation's prison system. As a whole, our judicial system is failing, with less focus on rehabilitation and earned release and more attention on punishment. For example, Washington State offers no chance at parole. Parole was taken away in the 80s when the Sentencing Reform Act went into effect. Since this very negative impact was enacted, 40 years later, overcrowding is out of control and has been dumped on prison administrators to deal with. Even in the early 2000s, I personally witnessed the overcrowding here at WCCW. In a tiny rectangular cell that is challenging enough for two people to be crammed into, a third person was being housed on the floor right next to a toilet. In order for someone to leave the cell, they had to step over the top of someone. The person on the floor would have to use the restroom, would have someone using the restroom right next to their face. This is completely inhumane. Living conditions were horrendous and tensions were higher than ever. Even today, and going back to the early 2000s, people have been waiting in the closed custody unit, CCU, for beds, a unit that is a step below maximum security. People who are only medium security must wait in CCU for up to 2 months. In other words, people have to be housed in the wrong custody level to wait for a bed in the medium security unit, MSU, which is continually filled to the brim with bodies of long sentences that have been well trained to run the prison program. When the bed space in CCU is full, people then have to start sleeping on the floor in receiving, another unit that has a toilet in the cell. Waiting in the wrong custody level is not a new situation. It is a problem that has spanned over decades here at WCCW, but has been hugely ignored. While it is true that overcrowding temporarily waned during the COVID-19 pandemic, it is rapidly picking back up now that the state of emergency is over. Overcrowding particularly affects MSU, which is where people with long sentences must serve the duration of their time. With a good amount of sentences being subject to mandatory minimum laws and being no release, such as parole, the population continually multiplies without release. This constant flow of people being crammed into MSU while hardly having any hope throughout their journey is simply wrong. This is mass incarceration at its finest. But on a human level, as one of the ladies in here said, MSU has become a house of no hope for some. One of the cruelest things to do to a human is leave them in this state of being. Legislation to alleviate overcrowding is proposed year after year, but nothing has passed so far to fix this issue of excessively long sentences, except for parole for those who were under 18, which was a good step in the right direction. In Washington, we simply need reprieve from long sentences and mandatory minimums, which are the two things directly responsible for clogging up our prisons. Parole would certainly be the perfect solution to this. A good starting point could be the bill that was named Emerging Adults, which would give parole to adolescents who were 25 and under because of solid scientific evidence proving that up until this age, people do not consider the consequences and act without thinking. If the bill were to pass at the age of 25 in the upcoming legislative session, this would be wonderful, and it would have profound life-changing effects for many people who would love, more than anything, to reclaim their lives instead of slaving for the prison day after day. But if the people in power still have reservations about this type of legislation, a progressive starting point could be to extend the Emerging Adults Bill to the age of 21. After we see the success here and the Indeterminate Sentence Review Board finishes considering cases for this age group, the age could be further extended to 25. This way, we could begin making progress in increments rather than not at all. This would have real-life effects for many people who only made a youthful mistake. Since parole has been approved for people who were under 18, there has been success in the lives of those who were granted their freedom. They have been released and were able to start their lives over. So, a next logical step would be parole for those who were under 21 and up to 25. As the age incrementally progresses, people will become more comfortable with the idea of supporting the evidence and likely more supportive in future sessions. In the meantime, people would have their freedom, starting with the youngest and moving up to the oldest, fitting within the science. This would be the start of ending mass incarceration within Washington State, and we should take a leadership role in this mission. A compelling thing I wanted to note is that even one of our nation's top leaders, former President Obama, acknowledged the realities of being young after a visit to El Reno Federal Correctional Institution by saying, "What is normal is teenagers doing stupid things. What is normal is young people making mistakes. And we've got to be able to distinguish between dangerous individuals who need to be incapacitated and incarcerated versus young people who are in an environment in which they are adapting, but if given different opportunities, a different vision of life, could be thriving the way we are." This eye-opening picture Obama has given us on youthfulness should help soften the hearts of people who harshly judge those who made mistakes in their youth. As humans, we all make mistakes, and not a single one of us is perfect. But we are also capable of great change. Maybe someone's mistake happened because they weren't born into the right circumstances. Maybe they were protecting their family. You never know until you walk a mile in someone's shoes. No matter the situation, everyone should be given a second chance, as long as they are taking the steps to become better. That concludes this week's discussion. Just like before, if you want to reach out to me directly, I am an inmate at the Washington Corrections Center for Women, and you can email me through Securus. My name is Kimberly Carter, COC 815679. I will talk to you again next week, and remember, for every person sitting in prison right now, millions more family members are left behind to suffer.